Ever wondered what examiners are really looking for when they mark your paper? Well, today we're going behind the scenes. We're going to break down exactly how to earn every single mark on a GCSE biology question by digging into the official AQA mark scheme.
Okay, let's get right into it. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll unpack the question itself. Then, we'll tackle the difference between biotic and abiotic factors. After that, it's all about sampling and calculations, and we'll finish up by looking at how you critique the method. We are going to dissect this 13-mark question completely.
So, first up, let's introduce the challenge. We're tackling question 05 from an AQA GCSE Biology paper, and it's a pretty hefty one, all about ecology.
Now, this isn't just about remembering facts. Nope. This question is designed to test a whole mix of things. Your core knowledge, sure, but also how you apply scientific methods and how you handle data. 13 marks is a huge chunk of your final grade, so let's make sure we know how to get every last one.
Okay, let's jump into the first part, 05.1, and see how the marks are handed out. This bit is all about correctly classifying environmental factors as either biotic, which means living, or abiotic, which is non-living.
And here are the answers, pulled directly from the mark scheme. So, the rabbits and the trampling by people, those are your biotic, your living factors. Everything else on the list, the nitrates, the shade from a building, the soil pH, and the temperature, those are all abiotic. It's really that simple.
Now, this is what's really useful about looking at the mark scheme. It's not an all-or-nothing game. If you get all 6 right, boom, 3 marks. But even if you only get 2 or 3 correct, you're still walking away with a mark. It just goes to show you that every single tick you get right really does add up.
All right, next up, we're looking at the middle section of the question now. This is where it gets into the nuts and bolts of ecological sampling, and then it asks you to crunch some numbers. This is where your practical skills and your math skills really need to shine.
So, question 05.2 is basically asking, how do you place your quadrats randomly? The mark scheme isn't just looking for you to say the word random. No, it wants a specific, scientifically sound method that proves you know how to avoid bias in your sample.
So for the full 2 marks, you need 2 distinct parts. The first mark is for describing the method, using a grid and coordinates. The second mark is for explaining why you're doing it, to achieve randomness. And you'll notice the mark scheme specifically says to ignore throwing the quadrat. That's a classic mistake, so don't fall for it.
But what if your mind goes blank in the exam? Well, here's a great little tip hidden in the mark scheme. If you can't remember the whole grid and coordinates thing, describing a random walk can still get you 1 mark. It shows that even if you can't recall the perfect answer, a valid scientific alternative can still get you some credit.
Okay, now for the big one, the calculation in 05.3. This is worth a massive 5 marks. The mark scheme breaks it down into these really clear, step-by-step chunks. You get a mark for working out the mean daisies per square meter, then another for setting up the lawn area calculation correctly, a third mark for getting the area right, 62, a fourth for the total daisy population, and that final crucial mark for rounding your answer to 3 significant figures.
This here is the full breakdown from the official mark scheme, and it highlights something absolutely vital. See where it says allow ECF? That stands for error carried forward. It means if you get the area wrong but use that wrong number correctly in the next step, you won't get penalized again. That's why you have to always show you're working.
All right, let's move on to the final part of this question. 05.4 asks you to actually evaluate the scientific method they used and suggest a couple of improvements. This is where you get to think like a scientist and critique an experiment.
So, to get the full 2 marks here, the mark scheme is looking for any 2 of these points. You could say there were too few quadrats used, or maybe that the quadrat itself was too small. Or you could make a more general point, that because of those issues, the sample might not be truly representative of the whole lawn.
And what's great here is this extra information bit. It shows you how flexible the marking can be. Saying sample size too small is just another way of saying too few quadrats. It proves the examiner is trying to credit your understanding of the scientific concept, not just your ability to parrot a specific phrase.
You see, the key takeaway from all of this is that the mark scheme is so much more than just an answer key. It is literally the blueprint for success. It shows you how marks are built up, where you can get partial credit, and the exact kind of scientific language that's going to get you the top marks.
So now that you know how to read the blueprint, you can go into any exam question with a real strategy.
It's not just about what you know, but how you present that knowledge to hit every single marking point. It completely changes how you approach answering questions. Thanks for joining me.